There was once a man who lived and died by the blade, but whose real weapon was not steel. It was his mind. His name was Miyamoto Musashi, and he remains one of the most legendary warriors the world has ever known. He fought more than 60 duels to the death and never lost. He was a master of strategy, of art, of philosophy, and of himself. And before he died, he left behind a warning so sharp that it still cuts through centuries of weakness. What he discovered about men, their fragility, their addictions, and their hidden fears, is as relevant today as it was 400 years ago. Before we dive in, if you seek to rise above comfort, to sharpen your mind and spirit like the ancient masters did, take one moment right now to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, we uncover the lost teachings of warriors like Musashi, Stoics, and philosophers whose wisdom can change your life forever. Now, let's begin. If you were to sit across from Musashi today, he wouldn't tell you how to swing a sword. He would look you in the eye, measure your soul, and ask one question: what are you a slave to? Because his greatest realization was that weakness doesn't come from lack of strength. It comes from slavery. Men are enslaved to approval, to comfort, to desire. They trade their power for pleasure, their potential for peace, and their destiny for distraction. Musashi spent his life cutting those chains one by one until nothing owned him anymore. That was the path that made him invincible. When he was 13, he killed his first opponent. By 16, he was already feared across Japan. But Musashi's evolution wasn't just physical, it was psychological. He studied people more deeply than he studied the sword. He watched how fear moved in their eyes, how pride made them careless, how desire made them predictable. He discovered that the enemy was never just the man in front of him. It was the weakness that man carried inside, and that's why he always won. In the final years of his life, he withdrew from the world and wrote a book that he called Dokodo, The Path of Solitude. In it, he stripped down everything he had learned about men and wrote the truths that no one wanted to face. He said that almost all men are destroyed by 3 invisible addictions. They seem harmless, even human, but they rot the soul from within. The first is the need for approval. The second is the avoidance of discomfort. And the third is slavery to desire. Musashi wrote, "Do not seek to be loved by everyone." To him, approval was poison. When someone praises you, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical triggered by drugs. You crave it again and again. Soon, you can't live without it. You start to bend yourself to fit the expectations of others. You work not to create, but to impress. You speak not to express, but to be liked. And slowly, the man inside you begins to disappear. You become a mirror for other people's opinions. Musashi saw this sickness everywhere, even in his time. He realized that a man who needs applause to feel alive has already handed his power to others. He wrote, "When you need the approval of others to feel valuable, you have given your power away to them." A man without power is just a shadow. He learned to move through life without needing to be understood, admired, or accepted. He practiced being disliked. He embraced solitude not as punishment, but as purification. In solitude, there is no one to applaud you, no one to rescue you, no one to feed your ego. There is only you, and the truth of what you really are when the world stops watching. The second weakness Musashi exposed was the escape from discomfort. "Accept everything as it is," he wrote. He understood something that even modern science confirms. Growth only happens through tension. Muscles, minds, and character develop only when they are forced beyond what feels safe. But most men spend their entire lives running from that edge. They avoid difficult conversations, hard work, emotional pain, uncertainty, anything that feels like struggle. They hide behind excuses, call it self-care, and with every easy choice they make, they grow weaker. Musashi was ruthless with himself. He sought out harshness. He slept on the cold ground, trained in storms, lived without comfort. Because he enjoyed pain, but because he knew that discomfort is the forge of discipline. He once said, "If you wish to control others, first control yourself." And control is not born in comfort, it's born in fire. Neuroscientists now tell us that the brain grows new connections only when challenged. Musashi knew that centuries ago. That's why he walked toward discomfort while others ran from it. But the most devastating weakness he revealed was the slavery to desire. He wrote, "Let go of desire." For Musashi, a man who is ruled by his impulses is no different from an animal. Look around and you'll see the same truth he saw. Men destroyed by lust, by greed, by endless hunger for entertainment and distraction. They think they are free, but they are puppets pulled by invisible strings, algorithms, appetites, attention. Musashi cut those strings. He refused to be owned by any craving. He mastered himself so completely that pleasure became optional, not necessary. He understood that freedom begins when you can say no to comfort, to temptation, to the part of you that always wants more. After years of duels and victory, he made a radical decision. He walked away from fame, from society, from everything that could soften him. He called it forging through solitude. He lived alone in the mountains, meditated in caves, trained in silence. No friends, no family, no distractions, only discipline. He said that a man discovers his true strength only when there is no one left to save him. In loneliness, he found clarity. In silence, he found truth. During this time, he faced what he called the three inner demons. The first was the voice of doubt, whispering, "You're not good enough." The second was the voice of addiction, saying, "You need others to feel whole." And the third was the voice of fear, asking, "What if you fail?" Musashi fought them not with words, but with action. He disciplined his mind until the voices grew quiet. He learned that fear cannot survive focus. And that self-doubt evaporates in the heat of movement. The man who keeps walking cannot be paralyzed by thought. But Musashi's most shocking ritual was something he called living death. Every morning, he meditated on his own death. He visualized the moment in brutal detail. His body cut by a blade, his blood spilling onto the ground, his life fading into silence. To most people, it sounds grim, even insane. But to Musashi, it was liberation. By facing death daily, he erased its power over him. A modern psychologist once said that the fear of death is the root of all other fears. Musashi discovered that truth 4 centuries earlier. When you accept death completely, you stop being afraid to live. You stop clinging. You stop hesitating. You move with pure intent. After years of solitude and this daily confrontation with mortality, Musashi returned to civilization, and everyone who met him felt something terrifying. Before a duel even began, his opponents sensed defeat. They said looking into his eyes was like staring into an abyss. He had become something beyond fear. His calm was absolute, his focus unbreakable. He had turned himself into what he called the perfect warrior, not because he sought death, but because he no longer feared it. From this transformation, Musashi wrote what he called the 5 laws of invincibility, The first was to accept loneliness as your greatest teacher. Solitude strips away illusion and leaves only truth. The second was to turn discomfort into fuel. While others run from pain, the strong use it as a whetstone. The third was to kill your emotional needs, the endless hunger for validation, love, and attention that keeps men dependent. The fourth was to live as if already dead. For a man who accepts death cannot be controlled. And the fifth was to master your impulses, to control desire, anger, hunger, laziness, every primitive urge that can hijack your will. When you own yourself completely, no one else can own you. His mastery was tested in the most famous duel in Japanese history, the fight against Sasaki Kojiro, the only man considered his equal. Musashi arrived 3 hours late, deliberately. While Kojiro's anger and impatience consumed him, Musashi sat calmly in a boat, carving a wooden sword from an oar. When he finally stepped onto the beach, Kojiro was trembling with rage. Musashi walked slowly, relaxed, indifferent. Within 30 seconds, the fight was over. Kojiro was dead, struck down by a weapon Musashi had shaped moments earlier. That was the power of psychological dominance. Victory before battle. But the greatest proof of his strength came after he had nothing left to prove. For the last 20 years of his life, he never killed again. Even when challenged, he found ways to win without taking lives. He wrote, "True strength does not come from dominating others. It comes from dominating yourself." The man who once sought perfection through combat had transcended the... During his final years, Musashi revealed what he called the secret code of strong men. "Strong men," he wrote, "do not need to look strong. Their confidence is quiet, because it comes from certainty, not show. They master patience, waiting years or decades for the right moment, because haste is weakness. They are not afraid to be wrong. Only fragile egos need to be right. They protect their weaknesses instead of hiding them, strengthening the very places others overlook. And above all, they remain unpredictable. They refuse to be patterns that others can read. Mystery is a weapon. Predictability is surrender." Musashi also made a disturbing observation about human nature. Most men aren't competing to win. They're competing not to lose. They live defensively, protecting their comfort, their image, their tiny sense of security. They act like prey, not predators. Predators attack to conquer. Prey defend to survive. Musashi fought to win, never to avoid losing, and that's why he was unbeatable. To test his own strength, he created a brutal thought experiment. He imagined losing everything: his fame, his fortune, his body, his friends, and then asked himself, would I still be strong? The answer was always yes, because his strength no longer depended on anything outside him. He had built it where no one could touch it, inside. That leads to Musashi's final and most devastating truth. The difference between strong men and weak men is not in what they have, but in what they can live without. Weak men need approval, pleasure, distraction, company, validation. Strong men can live without all of it, and precisely because they can, life gives it to them freely. When you stop needing something, you attract it naturally. Stop needing respect, and people respect you. Stop needing attention, and others are drawn to you. Stop needing success, and you move with the quiet confidence that creates it. That is the paradox Musashi discovered. Freedom from need is the highest form of power. He wrote that the path of strength is the path of solitude. But at the end of that path, you are not lonely. You are complete. Modern men chase connection because they feel empty. chase comfort because they feel fragile, chase validation because they feel unseen. Musashi's life was proof that when you remove those cravings, what remains is unbreakable. The world cannot manipulate a man who wants nothing from it. If Musashi were alive today, he would see a generation drowning in comfort and calling it peace, numbing themselves with screens and calling it rest, craving attention and calling it love. He would not scold, he would challenge. He would say, "Stop running from pain. Stop seeking applause. Stop mistaking distraction for purpose. Face yourself, because until you do, nothing you achieve will matter." Every morning, you have a choice. You can wake up and reach for your phone, seeking the tiny rush of digital approval that will fade in minutes. Or you can wake up and reach for something harder: discipline, silence, effort, solitude. You can step toward discomfort and let it forge you. You can begin your own path of solitude, not by withdrawing from the world, but by refusing to let it own you. And if this message resonates with you, if you feel that pull deep inside to rise beyond weakness, then subscribe to the channel now. This is where we honor men like Musashi, the men who walked the lonely path so that generations after them could find strength within themselves. Your transformation starts the moment you decide you no longer need to be saved. Musashi's brutal advice is not cruelty, it's compassion in its hardest form. He knew that the only way to save a man is to force him to meet himself. Every weakness you tolerate becomes a chain. Every comfort you worship becomes a cage. Break them one by one. Seek the silence that frightens you. Endure the discomfort that refines you. Master the desires that enslave you. And when you have done all that, you'll find something extraordinary: calm strength. The kind that doesn't boast, doesn't waver, doesn't need. The kind that others feel the moment you enter a room. That is real power. That is freedom. Musashi once wrote, "The way is in training." There is no finish line, no quick fix, no secret shortcut. The path itself is the destination. Every day you walk it, you become a little less fragile, a little more alive. The point is not to become perfect, but to become unbreakable. So now the question remains: will you continue to seek comfort like the countless men before you? Or will you accept Musashi's challenge? The path of solitude is not easy. It will test you, isolate you, strip you bare. But it will also give you everything you've been searching for in all the wrong places. Because in the end, strength is not measured by what you can take from the world, but by what you can live without. When nothing owns you, not fear, not desire, not approval, you have become the master of yourself. And when you are the master of yourself, there is nothing left to conquer. That was Musashi's final lesson to mankind. The weak chase comfort, but the strong chase growth. And though the path is lonely, at the end of it, you will not be alone. You will be whole. You will be free. And you will have become what he called the complete man. A man who needs nothing, fears nothing, and therefore cannot be broken.